You ever wonder why some arguments just explode, while other, bigger problems seem to, well, just vanish before they even get started? Today we're going to dive into this really cool philosophical framework that gives us a whole new way to think about wisdom, conflict, and the invisible power that can just make it all go away.
I mean, it's the big question, right?
It applies to everything, from a fight with your family all the way up to global politics. But the text we're exploring today suggests the answer isn't really about what we do, it's about the level of wisdom we're coming from when we act.
So this source lays it out as a kind of ladder, a four-rung ladder of wisdom. And we're going to climb it together, okay? We'll start at the very bottom, the most common and chaotic level, and work our way up to something, well, something profound and completely formless. So let's start the climb.
Okay, our first couple of stops are the levels where honestly most of the world's visible action happens. This is the world of noise, of reaction, of competition. It's a world you and I are going to recognize instantly.
Right at the bottom of the ladder, you've got what the text calls zaodong. It translates to something like agitation or just noise. This is the wisdom of pure reaction. It's loud, it's messy, and its main tool is just open, obvious conflict. And you see this stuff everywhere, right? The source points to everything from the couple down the street arguing so loudly the whole neighborhood can hear, to nations making threats on the world stage. It's even that person you see on social media just trying to stir up trouble for the sake of it. It all comes from that same restless, reactive agitation. Okay, take one step up the ladder, and we find what's called medium wisdom. The key word here is jingzhong, which means competition. See, the world isn't just a noisy mess anymore. Now it's an arena, it's a contest, and the goal is simple: win.
Now what's fascinating is, according to this text, this level is packed with people our society calls successful. Think about it. Politicians fighting for votes, business leaders battling for market share, celebrities competing for the spotlight, top athletes going for the gold. Anyone driven by that game of winning and losing is operating right here.
So let's just pause for a second. The big difference between these first two levels is huge. At the bottom, you've just got pure chaotic noise, agitation. But one step up, that chaos gets organized into a competition. Both are about fighting on the outside, but one is just pointless noise, while the other has a very clear goal: beat the other person.
All right, now we're leaving that world of visible fighting behind. We're starting to climb higher, into something much quieter, much deeper, and a whole lot more powerful. We're shifting from just action to real insight.
And this is where it starts to get a little weird, a little counterintuitive. We get to great wisdom, or 大智若愚. The literal translation is something like great wisdom that appears foolish. These are the people who are so locked in on the long game, so deep in their work, that they have zero time for the noisy contests happening down below. They don't need to look smart.
In fact, the source uses this exact phrase, 好像有点傻兮兮, which means they seem a bit silly or foolish. And that's not an insult. In this context, it's the highest praise. It just means they're not putting on a show for anyone. They're just doing the work.
So who are these people? Well, the text suggests Nobel Prize winners, deep-thinking philosophers, true masters of their craft. You know, picture a scientist who spends 30 years in a lab to make one single breakthrough, not caring at all about fame or recognition until the very end. That's great wisdom in action.
And now we've reached the very top of the ladder. Supreme wisdom. Shangju Wuxin. The key word there is wuxin, formless. At this point, we're not even talking about a person's quality anymore. It's more like a force. It works invisibly, without any effort, shaping reality without ever showing its hand. To help us get our heads around this formless idea, the text gives us a few really powerful images. First, think of it like the wisdom of a divine power organizing the entire cosmos, a perfect order that exists without anyone needing to see a manager running the show.
Or think about the wisdom of nature's laws. You know, gravity, the changing of the seasons. These forces control everything, but you can't see gravity itself. You only see its effects. It's incredibly powerful, yet totally invisible.
And finally, it's the wisdom of the Tao, that effortless, flowing, natural way of the universe in Eastern philosophy. It's a force that achieves everything by seemingly doing nothing, resolving all conflict by just letting things follow their natural path.
So, okay, this all sounds pretty cosmic, but what does this formless wisdom actually look like in the real world? How does it work? Well, the text gives us a few brilliant comparisons to make it crystal clear.
Think about a doctor.
A good doctor treats sickness when it shows up, but the wisest doctor, they prevent you from ever getting sick in the first place. Or a general. A good general wins battles, but the wisest general turns enemies into friends so there's no battle left to fight. A good king enforces laws, but the wisest king inspires the people so deeply that they govern themselves, and the laws become almost an afterthought. The highest skill is to make the problem dissolve before it ever becomes a visible problem.
All of this leads us to the final and most important question. Where does this incredible power, this ability to resolve conflict invisibly, actually come from? The answer is, well, it's stunningly simple, and at the same time incredibly deep.
The source itself puts the question right out there for us. 化解万千矛盾与无形的奥秘在哪儿呢? Where is the secret?
The answer is just 2 words.
在思维中, in thought.
So here's the big punchline. The entire ladder of wisdom, it exists inside of us. This source is arguing that our own thinking is the ultimate invisible power. By raising our own thinking from that noisy, reactive agitation all the way up to formless, preventative insight, we gain the power to make external conflicts just dissolve before they can even take shape. The real battle is always won or lost internally first.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If the highest wisdom works invisibly, and if its source is our own mind, what conflicts, big or small, is your thinking quietly resolving right now before they ever even see the light of day?